You've probably noticed that lubricant manufacturers make a lot of products. A lot. Now, to actually get all of these tested and approved would be impractical, both from a time and an economic standpoint. So, some guidelines have been created around mixing different base oils and different additive packages and having them sort of read across and be approved all at once. So, let's talk about how that happens. All right, let's talk about engine oil blending, and let's start with viscosity. So, you'll probably be already familiar with the fact that engine oils are governed by SAE crankcase viscosities, and you'll see something like an SAE 40. That would represent a monograde 40 weight engine oil. And these are very common, let's say, for example, in stationary gas engines or marine diesel engines, things like that. You'll still see a lot of monograde engine oils. But in consumer categories or in heavy duty diesel engine oils, you'll see typically multigrade, so something like a 15W40. Now, we know that the SAE sets out criteria for what are the low and high temperature viscosities. So at low temperature, you're really governed by low temperature crank, low temperature pumping, as well as the kinematic viscosity, whereas at the regular temperatures, you're also concerned with high shear viscosity. So let's play a game, and let's say that you are a lubricant brand or lubricant manufacturer, and you've identified a gap in the market. You've presented it to the board. You want to create a new product. Well, how do you go about doing that? So you probably go to, you might have some chemists within your company or some product owners within the company, and you say, I want to create a new product. What do I need to do? One of the first things that you need to do is you need to appease, let's call them the gatekeepers. I don't mean that in a derogatory way in any way. API, which is the American Petroleum Institute, and their equivalents over in Europe, who look after the ASEA categories, have created specifications for a lot of different engine oils. Now, you might ask, why is there a governing body for these engine oils versus industrial engine oils and industrial lubricants? The reason why these kind of exist is because engine oils for passenger car motor oils, as well as even heavy-duty diesel engine oils, exist in this in-between space where they have to act both as commercial products as well as consumer products. So generally in the commercial world, it's kind of buyer beware. If you are purchasing products, then you are doing your own testing and you have your own capability probably to with recourse, right? You might have a legal team, but where a product is sold to consumers, the consumer needs to be protected. Right? They need to understand what they're buying. They need to understand the performance and the quality are going to match a certain spec. And so really that's why these categories exist for passenger car motor oils as well as diesel engine oils. On top of people like API and ASEA, you also have a number of local associations that are cropping up as well. So there's the Asian Lubricants Industry Association, the Australian Lubricant Association. There's equivalents over in the UK, the UKLA. And these act really as, I don't want to call them local police, but they are associations generally formed by the lubricant manufacturers to kind of self-police the industry and also kind of raise the quality of the industry locally. And this is because someone like the American Petroleum Institute, they can't be monitoring the lubricants industry in Australia. They don't have the resources for that. You need that local knowledge and that local touch. So these are the people who are both creating the categories that we will need to match our product to, and they're also the ones that will be policing it as well. So let's say I have brand ABC and I want to create a product which I'm going to call ABC Magic Serum, and it's going to be Magic Serum 10W30. Now, the process of actually getting one of these products off the ground is usually we don't have that kind of capacity in-house. There are very, very few companies that could do this as a standalone exercise. In fact, I would say there are none, right? One of the first things that you'd probably do is go and talk to the additive companies. There's the big four, which are Infineum, Lubrizol, Afton, and Chevron Oronite, and there are many, many other additive companies as well. And you would probably specify to them, and you would say, I want to create a product which is going to satisfy all the requirements for API SP, let's say, right? I want to get the API SP donut on my product. Can you help? And generally they'll say yes. We would like to think that they send off their chemists and they do all this, crazy, beautiful mind math stuff. But the reality is that these days it's more like going to the shops and picking up an additive package off the shelf. Just a bit of editorial here. It sounds like I'm being a little bit disparaging to lubricant manufacturers. The reality is I'm not. There are different ways of creating lubricants. One of them is to take off-the-shelf additive packages and, additive package A plus base oil B will give me API SP. That is a perfectly legitimate way of creating a lubricant formulation. And in fact, if you are going for the lowest cost option, then, if you're selling a commodity product, then that's perfectly fine. Then there are variations on it, right? Maybe, as a lubricant manufacturer, you've gone to, let's say, a Lubrizol or an Infinium, and you ask for an off-the-shelf additive package, but you ask for a couple of tweaks. Maybe you want an upgraded antioxidant package, or maybe you want something better in the detergent and dispersant package, right? So they'll make minor modifications for you. And then at the very extreme end of it, there are some companies which will do not necessarily custom additive packages, but will customize the additive packages. In particular, I'm thinking about the larger lubricant manufacturers who have in-house chemical companies that can actually create new chemical compounds for their additive packages. So there are, let's say, different philosophies about how you approach the creation of a lubricant additive and base oil combination. My additive pack, I go along to my base oil supplier and I say, could you please give me a base oil? And I'm going to use EHC 50 just as an example, right? Because that is ExxonMobil's Group 2 product and I'm familiar with it. So now I have a base oil and an additive. And in general terms, what you say is you have your base oil and you have your additive package. And when I mix the two together, I get lubricant ABC Magic Serum 10W30. Now, it's not quite that simple, right? All I've given you here are like the ingredients. But if you've ever baked a cake, and if you're a terrible baker like I am, then you will know that you can give two people the same ingredients, but you will not get the same product. So there is a certain amount of variation in manufacturing quality as well. So part of, your brand as a lubricant manufacturer is about the manufacturing quality. Are you, for example, doing quality control checks on every batch? Certain additives need to be heated as they are blended into the mix. How homogeneous is the blend? Right? All of these factors contribute to lubricant quality. They ensure, for example, that the additives aren't going to settle out. They ensure that they are completely dispersed within the lubricant. They ensure that they are completely solvated. So, it's not just a matter of taking base oil A and additive package B and just pouring them together, right? That doesn't get you a high quality lubricant. There is manufacturing technique that goes into it as well. Now, even then, you're not done, because in order to get that API SP donut, right, you need to do a couple more things. For one, you've got to pay API. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is any kind of, under the table thing going on here. API needs money in order to run this program and to monitor this program. So there is a license fee involved. I think it's $4,500 up front. Then you've obviously got to do a whole bunch of testing, and then there is $0.007 per gallon fee that you have to pay based on sales, right? But that's only above 1 million gallons. So don't feel too sorry for these companies, right? Now you have ABC Magic Serum 10W30, right? And you can probably get that API SP donut on it, assuming all things have gone well. However, right, just to throw a wrinkle into the mix, you've done all of this work with this specific base oil and additive package, or this recipe. So what if all of a sudden there's a shortage of, we've seen during COVID that supply shortages can hit, and they can hit hard. So let's say, for example, that the supply of EHC50 is short. Does that mean that I can no longer manufacture my product? Well, no, not necessarily. There is a thing called a base oil slate. And effectively, EHC is a product range that is available in many different viscosities, right? So EHC50 represents a 5 centistoke base oil at 100 degrees Celsius. So EHC45 is a 4.5 centistoke. So if I had already formulated my product with an EHC50, what I would really like is the capacity to take a little bit of EHC60, mix it in with a lot of EHC45, and get myself back to that 10W30. Or maybe I put even more EHC45 in, and therefore I need to go to another higher viscosity, which is EHC100. And now I can get to 10W30. So this is called base oil interchange, right? And it's there are some rules around it. You have to be very, very careful that you don't violate any of the rules. But basically it means that you can go up and down in a base oil slate, and as long as you preserve the viscosity, then that's okay. You can retain the API-SP donut. The other thing that you can do as well, and what's generally allowable, is to increase the quality, right? So as an example, if I was running short of EHC50, but I could put in a little bit of PAO at the same viscosity grade, then that would probably be acceptable as well based on the base oil interchangeability guidelines, right? So that means that we're going to be okay, right? I can do a little bit of base oil interchange, and keeping in mind that the additive package basically has to say the same whenever I'm doing this. Now, the other thing is, I've spent a lot of money on developing this 10W30. It doesn't make any sense that I would just sell one product. I would also want to sell a 5W30, a 10W40, a 15W40, a 20W50, right? I want to get bang for my buck here. So can we do that? And the answer is yes. And it's this concept that's called Viscosity Grade Read Across, or just, VGRA for short. And basically this concept, right, says that if I develop a formulation at a low viscosity, I can pretty much take that same concept and apply all the different approvals to higher viscosity grades. Now, it's not quite that simple, right? And don't take me at face value. You need to read the documents if you want to do this. But effectively what that would say is, if I have developed and achieved, the API SP service category for a 5W30, right, with a EHC45, then if I developed the same product with an EHC50, then I could apply the API SP donut to a 10W30, and then I could do the same thing for a 15W40, and then I could do this, a 10W40 and then a 15W40 as well. Again, similar rules apply with regards to quality, that if I increase the quality of an option by going from a group 2 to, say, a group 4, I would be allowed to do that. And there's all kinds of rules around the group 5s as well. So if you have an ester and you want to switch it out, I think the maximum amount that you can do is like 10%. If it's less than 10% of the full formulation, you're allowed to do it. But again, you need to read the guidelines very, very carefully, because the VGRA approvals are on a test-by-test basis. So if you'll see, sequence 3 or sequence 4 or sequence 5, each of them have different VGRA guidelines. So you've got to be very, very careful.